All right, everyone. Thank you for joining us here on another edition of our Franchise Your Business webinar series. And as people are loading in for the session and joining us here, just a couple housekeeping items is if you find value in this presentation today, just know that it will be reposted and live on YouTube over the course of the next few days, as well as our other podcast channel called Franchise Your Business. And if you'd like more great content from us, we do have our weekly podcast called Multiply Your Success. So we'd love for you to be a part of that, which, by the way, our guest today, Justin Asiri, was a fantastic guest just a few weeks ago. So it'd be great for you to catch that interview as well to learn a little bit more about him and his business. And as we're jumping into this, I'll go ahead and just give a quick intro on our guest. Justin is the founder and CEO of Executive Presence, which is a full-service social media management provider for CEOs and top executives. He has served in the U.S. Navy on board nuclear submarines, founded and sold 3 companies. He holds an MBA from Stanford Graduate School of Business and a Bachelor of Science from the United States Naval Academy. He lives in Denver with his wife, 2 kids, and a dog. And Justin, just thank you so much for being here again.
Thanks so much for the opportunity, Tom. And let me share my screen here. Excited for you joining live and anyone watching the replay of this. But we're going to dive right in. I'm going to try to make this as actionable and tactical as possible. But in general, I'll give you the 1-minute background on myself as it relates to this topic. We're going to talk about executive branding 101, what to know about presenting yourself online. We're going to talk about your LinkedIn profile and 4 tips that almost everyone messes up. And so how you can, in about 20 minutes, fix those mistakes on your own profile. And then we're going to talk about how to use LinkedIn and 5 specific tips. And if you have questions along the way, feel free to stop, feel free to interrupt. Don't mind that at all. But otherwise, I'm just going to keep rolling until I see an interruption or if Tom wants to insert anything along the way. So background, as Tom shared, I started out at the Naval Academy, served on submarines. From there, went to business school, had no idea what even an investment banker was. I thought they were a teller at a bank. Along the way, started a couple companies, but one of them was a podcast helping the military veteran community. And that's where, I interviewed over 465 veterans, the former CEO of Pepsi, Coach K, a lot of incredible people, and started to realize, the role that personal branding makes in someone's success. And that led directly into what I do with Executive Presence, where I've helped over 100 CEOs build up authority and an audience on LinkedIn. And so a lot of the tips I'm going to give you today come from Executive Presence. They come from the podcast Beyond the Uniform, but in general helped about 550 different executives at this point get their story out there. And so I want to start by talking about executive branding. A lot of people hear the term personal branding and they have a strong aversion. I'm one of those people. I hate the thought of personal branding, but I want to try to change your thinking of that. When you see this picture of Steve Jobs, you probably immediately have certain words pop into your mind. For me, I think of innovator, disruptor, rebel, product design. His brand exists, whether or not he had a hand in shaping it, and I would argue he had a very strong hand in shaping it. We automatically perceive someone based on their brand. Those of you who are familiar with Jocko Willink, he's the author of Extreme Ownership. He's a very popular Navy SEAL. Anyone who knows him, who sees his image, probably thinks hardcore, no BS, direct, indomitable, extreme ownership. So we start to associate these words with different people that we know. And so I like to think that an executive brand is your reputation at scale. And I put this in a post on LinkedIn, literally that personal brand is annoying. It is essentially reputation. And when I think of personal branding, I think of projecting an image. But when I think of reputation, I feel like you're backing it up with your repeated and consistent actions. And so in case that shifts things for you, when I think of executive brand, my fallback is really, what is your reputation? How do people think of you? And I like this phrase, it's not who you know, it's who knows you. And I feel like that's why executive branding is very important today. You want people thinking of you. You want to control the narrative so that when they think of a particular topic and you're an expert in that space, you want them sending clients your way. You want them sending employees or investors your way. It really matters who knows you and who has you top of mind. So we all have networks, right? I went to certain schools. I've been parts of different entrepreneur groups. I've been parts of different companies. Each of us have a network. And I would argue that network is online through LinkedIn predominantly. And if you don't maintain that network, it dies. Historically, people have tried to maintain a network through maybe coffee chats, maybe grabbing dinner, maybe sending out holiday cards. These are all attempts to remain relevant with these people we've known oftentimes for decades. But you cannot just activate your network when you need them. This is one problem I see executives make. They're doing a job search and then they want to be relevant with their network. They're needing something to hire or to sell, and then they reach out to their network. And if you reach out to your network when you need them, you're already too late. No one wants to feel used. So it really is a proactive practice of keeping that network alive so that when you need them, you're not just asking for a handout. And I would argue that today, LinkedIn is the most efficient, it's the most scalable way to not only maintain your existing network, but constantly add to it with people who are relevant to your industry, your role, your geography. Much more scalable than holiday cards, dinner parties, coffee chats, things like that. Um, Personally, I invest obviously a lot of time in LinkedIn, and I've seen LinkedIn play a big role in a lot of different ways. And I'm going to highlight a couple examples. First of all, customer acquisition. My friend Matt was with me at the Naval Academy, which to date myself, I graduated from 20 years ago. And as much as I love Matt, I never once have talked to him in 20 years. We haven't had a conversation. We haven't hung out in person, but he's in my network on LinkedIn. He saw me posting every day about my work and what I do for executives. He never once liked on my content or commented on it, but he reached out to me out of the blue. He said, "Look, I know what you're doing because you talk about it on LinkedIn. My CEO would benefit from it." He made the intro. They signed up 2 weeks later. Why I love this is I would have never known that Matt had a CEO who could use our service. I would have never thought to proactively reach out to him, but I invest in my network every day on LinkedIn. Matt likes me, he trusts me, he knows me, and he made the effort here. So it's not about who I know, it's about who knows me. And this is a great example for customer acquisition. Another one, recruiting. Anytime I have a job post, I post about it on LinkedIn. And I have people emailing me or reaching out on LinkedIn, making introductions. How great is that as a force multiplier when these people are coming to me and referring their friends? Relationship building as well. This is an email I've tried to anonymize. This person I had reached out to, good to hear from you. I actually recently stumbled on a post you'd made on LinkedIn. Awesome. They know me, even though this is a cold outreach. They can get to know me very quickly because of my digital footprint. Other examples, I've had customers who come back to me. So someone quit my service, but they see me every day on LinkedIn. So I'm top of mind and they end up coming back. We've had one of our clients where they gave a talk at a conference. They give 12 talks a year. And he said, "Look, normally I have 5 people coming up to me after the presentation. Now," he said, "it's 150 people on average. They're coming up and they're referencing his LinkedIn presence. They feel like they already have a relationship with him." We've seen partnership referrals, fundraising, intros to key leaders. But all of this is just to say you have a powerful network. But if you can activate and add to it, it's going to be even more powerful for you. So, lastly, I would just make the case that as an executive, whether you're a CEO, whether you're a VP of sales, whether you're someone more junior, when you're active on LinkedIn, it obviously benefits your current company. It could benefit them from sales, recruiting, fundraising, partnerships, all of these things. But your profile goes with you for life. And so it's worthwhile to invest in it. Even if it's going to benefit your current company, it could benefit the company 6 years from now that you're going to be at. So I believe it's just a really good use of your time. So if there's questions, I'll stop or just interrupt me or throw them in the chat. But I'm just going to keep things moving to cover as much ground as possible, unless someone interrupts me. So we talked about executive branding. I want to talk now about LinkedIn in two ways. The first is going to be your profile, and the second is going to be your activity on LinkedIn. And the way I view your LinkedIn profile is it's a sales funnel for your company. And so we want to talk about the different sections that, in my view, are the most important to get right. The first and foremost is your header. I would say about half of the people I meet with, their header is blank. It's just a gray block. A good portion will just use it for a generic image. I often see a San Francisco skyline or a New York skyline, which is okay. But I think that this is usually about 25% of the visual real estate of your profile. So you want it selling on your behalf. For me, my biggest advice for you is it's for credibility and it's for explaining. So the way that I have done this here, and I'm about to redo it, but the way that I've done it is I've got our logo. It gives me a little bit of credibility that there's a company here. And then I'm trying to give the elevator pitch for why someone should speak with me. We provide a fully managed LinkedIn presence for CEOs and top executives. It's succinct, it's concise, it's clear. So that's generally the advice that I give to executives. Establish credibility with something that looks clean and credible, and then succinctly explain. And you want it to pass the 3-second test. If I were to flash this up for 3 seconds, 1, 2, 3, and then take it away, could you tell what does Justin do and why should someone talk to me? Canva is your friend. If you use Canva, you can get a free account. You can go on there. You can create something like this literally in 5 minutes. It doesn't have to be anything extensive, but just make sure that it conveys that you are a professional and why someone should speak to you. The second thing is the featured section. And I would say, I've met with, I think, 350 CEOs this year already in a sales context. I would say that probably 75% do not have a featured section. The reason why I put this number 2 is, again, it's very visual and it's a big chunk of real estate on your profile. And most people don't even have it on. The featured section is a way to show off, again, credibility or what you do. In my case, because I've had a couple of LinkedIn posts that got really good traction, I lead with that. And it's very relevant to what I do. 7 mistakes CEOs make on their LinkedIn profile. What CEOs can learn about LinkedIn from Code Epoxy. Here's a story I've seen played out, or 5 ways top CEOs use LinkedIn. So I'm providing posts as my featured section. I have, if you were to scroll here, which I can't do obviously because it's just a screenshot, I've also just taken screenshots from PowerPoints, a PowerPoint slide that kind of clearly defines something that we do or some credibility. You can just screenshot that. So don't feel like you need to have a post. If you have an article published somewhere prominent, if you have a video on YouTube, all of these can be used. But the key here is to visually communicate either credibility or knowledge. So the second area is the featured section. And if you Google, you can, very quickly, again, the featured section, if you want to do that, it'll take you less than 5 minutes to get started. This is what you're seeing here is the 20th version of my featured section. As I get more articles, I'll replace things. So everything's very iterative here. The third one is the about section. Again, I would say that probably 80% of the executives I meet with have an about section, but usually it's kind of 3 sentences. It's like a paragraph that's really dense. One of the things that we're going to get into in a second when we talk about being active on LinkedIn is that paragraphs are your enemy. A lot of people are using their mobile device to look at people on LinkedIn. So you want it to be really skimmable and visual. So you'll see that, in my example here, I've got bullet points, I've got clear sections, I've got sentences, I've got a lot of white space. But you really want to tell your story and why people should talk to you. Right now, based on where my company is at, I am very fixated on customer acquisition. So my profile is not written for investors. It's not really written for employees. My about section is written for people I'm going to sell to. And so just take that take this with a grain of salt that it is, written for someone who might work with me. If you are an executive focused on hiring or fundraising or partnerships, take that into consideration because, again, your profile is a sales funnel for you and your company. So just tailor it to the audience. You'll notice I use CEOs a lot because I tend to work with CEOs. So I want to make that very overt. And then fourth and finally, your current position. Add some detail about your current role. This is my current role, CEO, executive presence full-time. Again, I'm trying to have lots of white space. I'm trying to explain what we do. This is actually an older version of the current position. But the number of times I meet with someone and their very top position is just the company name, you got to spoon feed people. What does your company do? Why should I reach out to you? Why should I trust you? So use that real estate to really talk about your current position. We'll move next to kind of your activity on LinkedIn. But again, if you have questions, throw them in the chat, or we've got a small group. You can come off mute. I'm gonna keep on. Oops. Sorry, I'll keep on flying because I want to use the most of our time, but feel free to interrupt me if you have questions. So we talked about Executive Branding 101. We talked about your profile. Let's talk about how to use LinkedIn and your activity on LinkedIn to drive business, to drive value. The first and foremost thing that I would say is to post content on LinkedIn, not repost, but post original content. And don't post content that's selling people. I'm so humbled that Tom featured me on his podcast. People tune that stuff out if that's all you do. I'm so grateful that I just hired this person. Great. That's fine to do. And I think that that's the 20% of posting content on LinkedIn. But I really want to encourage you to use 80% of your content on LinkedIn to be a subject matter expert, to show thought leadership, to educate, to add value, to share your expertise. And we'll go through some specific examples here in a second, if you approach LinkedIn as an opportunity to teach instead of to sell, it's going to work a lot better because you're going to build up trust. You're going to be seen as an expert, and all of those things you're wanting, employees, investors, customers, they're going to come to you, but people don't want to be sold on LinkedIn. So let's start with Keziah's post here. I mean, this was a post that killed. She did a case study with us. She got close to 1 million views for this post. It led to over 1 year of pipeline from a single post. This is an outlier. I'm not trying to portray that this is the goal. This is a post that went viral, but I want to dissect this for you because there's a lot we can learn here. First of all, let's break down what makes a great thought leadership post. The most important part of your LinkedIn post is the first sentence. The first sentence needs to provoke. It needs to get someone scrolling on their phone to stop scrolling and to pay attention. Her scroll stopper is, a chief of staff has power, but no authority. That's great, right? Like, I think that sometimes LinkedIn posts are chest beating or talking about like how great something is. This is kind of gutting that perception. Like, this is a senior person within a company, but she's calling them out as having no authority. It's differentiated. It gets people to stop scrolling. The next purpose of a post is to get someone to click see more. Now, you don't see that here because I already clicked see more for the screenshot, but a post will generally show 3 lines or 2 lines on mobile, 3 lines of text, and a see more button. And to understand how LinkedIn works, if someone clicks see more, this post is going to get an enormous algorithmic boost. LinkedIn's going to show it to more people because the algorithm thinks, wow, someone stopped scrolling, someone chose to look at more content. Keziah probably has something great to share. So her 2 lines, this is by design. They have no direct reports, so they can be agile and act on the CEO's priorities quickly. So that was enticing enough that people said, okay, she knows what she's talking about. Let me click see more. You'll see that the rest of the post is skimmable. It's adding value. There's a clear takeaway at the end. Ultimately, a chief of staff's EQ is what enables them to have a lasting impact. You really want to spoon feed people at the end. You don't want them to think. You want to land with a single sentence that is either the biggest takeaway from the post or a summary. There is nothing in here mentioning that her company provides fractional chief of staffs. She is not selling. She is just teaching. And as you can see, this post did really well and led to sales, but she wasn't selling at all. I'll give you a second example. This is Jamie Cummings. He's a partner at JM Search, which is a recruiting company. As you can tell, right, you can tell part of it, I help companies find world-class talent, right? So he is not talking about, hey, use me for search. Instead, he's educating about the hiring process. You have to take into mind, Jamie is trying to attract companies to hire people, but he's also trying to attract people to apply for jobs. So he's speaking to that second audience here. Interviewers are not impressed if you simply read their company website before your interview. That level of preparation should be table stakes. So he is educating job seekers about how to get jobs. He's building up trust there, and he's attracting those people. Similar elements here, I won't go into detail, but it's very skimmable, clear takeaway at the end. I'll give you one more example on this. This is a post that I did that went really well. It starts with something eye-catching. Numbers usually catch people's eyes. So I start with, I spent $10,000 to get my team together for less than 24 hours. It's provocative, right? I'm revealing details about my company. I'm talking about spending a lot of money for a little bit of time. And then this is kind of a common tactic on LinkedIn. Here's what I learned. That's going to get a lot of people to click see more. And then you can see here, I'm giving specific numbers. I'm giving specific advice. So I'm just kind of, my intention here is not to sell. My intention is to give insight into the type of leader I am, because I'm interested in hiring people. And so this sort of candid advice and authenticity works really well when it comes to thought leadership. I'll move on to the second one, but I know a couple people have joined since I started. So if you have questions, feel free to put them in the chat or come on mute. I don't mind being interrupted, but I'll just keep on rolling until I get interrupted because I want to cover as much ground as possible. The second way to use LinkedIn, and again, this is on creating original content. The second thing to think of is not just being a thought leader, but being a human being. And so we talk about this with our clients about humanizing yourself. Now, one thing to know is that in general, and we've looked at tens of thousands of posts from our clients, personal posts tend to perform best on LinkedIn. When a leader is willing to open up and be vulnerable and share more about who they are, people tend to lean in, people tend to be drawn to that. So personal posts are a great way to be seen as a three-dimensional human being, but also attract quite a bit of attention. So this is an example. I've got a 4-year-old son. We went to a monster truck rally. I took a photo. Photos, by the way, kill on LinkedIn. If it's an original photo, you get 115% more views on average. That's one of the reasons I put this photo in there. But this was just something that I'm trying to take my personal life and apply it to business. And so even though this is about my family, I'm trying to track this back to business, because that's ultimately what LinkedIn is about. So that's one way to do it. Talk about something personal, but tie it in to how that impacts how you view business. This was another one. This is kind of a common tactic to use. So today is my 10th wedding anniversary. Here are 10 things I've learned from a decade of marriage. It's got a photo. That's going to stop the scroll. It's got, you can see right here, I'm trying to tease people into clicking see more. Here are 10 things, colon. That's a great way, like, to get those 10 things, you got to click see more. This was a very long post, and I was very vulnerable about mistakes I've made in my marriage. So that's, vulnerability sells. But we'll come back to that in a second. But this is a post that's humanizing me. My team gets to know a little about me. My clients get to know a little bit about me. It's just a way of making people more aware of what I do. One quick thing though, because I want to dig into. Sorry, I want to make sure my audio is working. Okay. So one quick thing. Oops. I'm just flying through here. One thing on as you think about personal posts, the question I ask my clients usually when they get started is, what if you had a dinner table of 20 prospects and clients, what would you talk about? If you would talk about your kids with that dinner table, absolutely talk about it on LinkedIn. But if you're the type of person where you would never bring up your family, don't talk about that on LinkedIn. Don't feel like you need to do these things to get eyeballs. I am a huge believer that authenticity sells. And so you want to just bring yourself authentically to LinkedIn. Don't talk about things because you think that you should. So if you were at that dinner table and you would talk about exercise and running, great, do that on LinkedIn. If you would talk about problems that you've experienced running your company, great, talk about that on LinkedIn. But if you would never open up about that, then don't feel obligated. So I like that dinner table rule as a guide for what to talk about from a personal standpoint on LinkedIn. Another example, today's my last day on planet Earth as a 42-year-old. Here are 42 things I've learned this last year. Again, I'm a very transparent person, so I don't mind talking about my personal life. I got an image of myself really young. It does really well. Those relevant and original images work well. Stock photos are the opposite. Never use a stock photo. Only use an image that's original and relevant. A third way to use LinkedIn and your content, and we'll get into some non-content related ones here in a second, but a third way is, if you're doing 80% thought leadership, 80% adding value, you can get away with the 20% when you're more directly promoting yourself or your company. But I like to promote my company in a way that doesn't feel selfish. One way that I do that is spotlighting employees. Next month is Kelly's first anniversary at Executive Presence. And then if you click see more, I talk a lot about her in a very personal way. So clearly, this is tangentially promoting my company because I'm showing that we're growing. I'm showing that I've retained employees, but I'm doing it in a way that feels good by spotlighting an employee. Another one is anytime you have a team get together, this is a great way to kind of show growth. So I met my fully remote team in person for the first time on Saturday. Here are 3 things I learned. Again, you'll get this thing that we're driving towards lessons. LinkedIn loves numbers. LinkedIn loves learnings. So anytime you get together with your team, a quick photo is a great post. Another one is reposting content. Reposts don't work, and I tried to call that out at the bottom. It gets about 1/3 of the views of original content, and that's why every example up till now has been original content specifically created for LinkedIn. That said, if you want to promote your company, you can always do a repost like this. Know that it's not going to get as many views, but obviously it's orders of magnitude faster than sharing your own content. I personally don't think I've ever reposted content in the last 12 months, but if you need to, feel free to do that. This one kind of goes back to the profile, but I want to talk about it because this is so vital in getting more visibility on LinkedIn. You need to have a descriptive title, and I'm going to start with a couple bad examples. So Gabrielle, RapidPay is hiring. Great. And let me first of all preface this. Your title goes everywhere on LinkedIn. So it's on your profile, but every time I comment, my title shows up. So that's a great way to get visibility. And we'll talk about a specific strategy there in a second. But let's talk about some bad examples. RapidPay is hiring. That's great, Gabrielle, because I know that you're growing, but I have no idea what RapidPay is. I guess it's finance, right? I kind of know, but it's like, it would be great if I knew a little bit more in case that's relevant. Nicole, I see this approach a lot. Speaker, advocate, igniter, veteran. To me, I dismiss that as like, wow, you don't really have a good focus here. Are you a speaker? Are you like, what do you do? Why would I reach out to you? It just seems too scattered. Rafa here, head of 70.72 Poland, president 0.72 France, global head of strategy. Like, I don't have a foothold here for why I would ever talk to him. What's 0.72? I get it's in Europe, but I just dismiss it. Anna Lieb, founder and CEO of Anna Lieb, LLC Breathwork Framework. Again, I don't really know. MBA, CPC, GVA, it's too much. So let me give you a couple of counter examples and why I like them. Logan Lyles, we produce B2B podcasts that drive revenue. Great. Anytime Logan posts on something or comments on something, if I'm looking for a B2B podcast, it stands out. I have a reason to reach out to him. I want to highlight here that he has Christ follower there. I would say you don't want to give people to say no to you. So for Logan, if he is primarily selling to people who share his religious views, this is great. He should go to that because people are going to be drawn to that. If he is selling to a broader audience, there is a chance that people are going to say no to him if they have some sort of judgment about his religious beliefs. I'll give you a quick side example there. In my featured section, I used to have a photo of me shaking hands with President George H.W. Bush, the senior George. And it was great, right? It's credibility. Here I am, I'm shaking hands with a US sitting president. That's great credibility for me. But I took it down from my profile because it was a reason to say no to me. If they came to my profile and they have certain judgments about a certain political party, I don't want them rejecting me because they're triggered by that. So I felt like there was more to lose than to gain than having that. So that's just one thing I wanted to highlight there. But the starting point is great. We produce B2B podcasts that drive revenue. A second one here, Justin Welsh, building a portfolio of one person's businesses to 5 million in revenue. Great. I kind of understand why I might follow him because I'm going to learn about how to build up those revenue streams. Austin Belchek, I teach people how to land amazing jobs without applying online. Without knowing anything else, I know exactly what he talks about and why I might engage with him. In my own example here, I am the founder of Executive Presence, but I don't put that in my title because it's a lot of real estate. CEO at Executive Presence, a managed social media service for CEOs. This is actually an older version of mine. But again, I'm trying to explain that I'm CEO, my company name, and what I do. So really use that descriptive title. It shows up everywhere. And I have literally gotten deals because I commented on someone's post, someone liked my comment, they read my title, they clicked on my profile, they signed up for our service. So don't underestimate the value of that title. Fifth one, and this gets into the title, commenting. Commenting is a great way to get a lot of benefit from LinkedIn with very little input. So ideally, and the first three ideas I gave you were all about creating original content. And I get that that takes a lot of work. And you may not be in the spot where you're able to invest the time in creating original content. So if you're not in a place where you can post every week on LinkedIn, commenting is a great way to get visibility, to get traffic, and it takes a fraction of the time. So if you have followed step 4 and you have a descriptive title, the next thing that you want to do is find people who are speaking to an audience you want to get in front of. So if I know that Andrew Bustamante is selling to CEOs, which is my target audience, then I can get in front of that audience by being one of the first people to comment on his posts. We call this comment drafting. So what we encourage our clients to do is to create a list of people who have a similar audience and have a large following. And what we have found is if you are amongst the first people to post on something like this post got 335 likes, so probably 300,000 people saw this post. If I'm amongst the first to comment and I have a good comment that adds value, my comment is going to be seen by probably 200,000 people. Those 200,000 people are going to see a managed social media service for CEOs. That's going to be good for me. And so commenting is a great way. Try to be first, try to post on people who have visibility, and try to add value. This is a little bit of a bad example. Congrats. This is not really adding much value. It's more creating a relationship, but yeah. So then this is another example. This person here has a similar audience, CEO of DaVita Kidney Care, got a lot of likes. I want to be their incredible leadership, focusing on what's ahead with a clear goal in mind will undoubtedly lead to continued success. So trying to use the comments in a sentence or two to add value, to demonstrate authority, and that can do quite a lot. So I believe that's the last example I have here. Let me see. It is. So we covered a lot of ground, and I'll stop sharing my screen here, but I want to open up in case there's any final questions. I know we're almost at time, and I know many of you are watching the replay, but for anyone who's live, if you have questions, I'm happy to go into them. But hopefully this added value on why executive branding matters, how to update your LinkedIn profile in a way that matters, and how to use your activity on LinkedIn to drive value for your business. So I'll stop there. Happy to answer any other questions.
Thank you, Justin. That was fantastic. And anyone who's tuning in here, feel free to hit the raise your hand feature or type some question into that Q&A. And we can go ahead and unmute you if you have any questions. And I know, just as we're waiting for people to reply here, Justin, for me, just watching this presentation, I already saw all those points that you went through, kind of those 4 or 5 quick things to check and on your own profile and make changes. I think I have errors in every single one of those. Some of them extreme, some of them in the middle, but all of them needing help. So I'm really grateful. Really, really great suggestion here. And by the way, if someone says, Justin, this was awesome, I love what you're doing, how can they find out more if they say, well, I don't want to do it myself here, I want to work with a pro like you? Well, how can they connect with you, get in touch, learn more about how you can help them?
I really appreciate that. Yeah, it's definitely that is what we do. Executive Presence does all of this for you. And you can find more at executivepresence.io. There's a lot of information there. So at executivepresence.io, that's our website. Or if you find me on LinkedIn, Justin Nassiri, I post twice a day, almost always about how to use LinkedIn. And so if this is valuable, I literally do this every single day. And so you get a free education just by following me on LinkedIn. So either of those are great ways. Feel free to message me on LinkedIn as well, and happy to chat with you about that. And one thing I just wanted to piggyback on, and again, if there's any questions, raise your hand, but I hope that those profile tips, and I know I appreciate your saying that, Tom, that you can improve on them. I really feel like if you followed all 4 of those profile tips, we're talking 1 hour tops. 1 hour to do the about section, the featured section, your headline. Like, it's not going to be a lot of time. And there's a million things you could do, but I feel like we're all looking for the 80-20, like what's the 20% of things we can do that add 80% of the value? Those are the 4 in my view. And it will take an hour or less. Just block the time and go through and do it. And if you do that, you're going to be better than, honestly, 90% of people on LinkedIn. And it's going to help you stand out.
Yeah, beautiful. And one thing too, I'm going to do a plug for you with your new email list. So I know you
Thank
just
you.
your weekly emails,
Yep.
and I joined up. I think I was on your
Yep.
very first one right around the
Yep.
time we did our podcast interview. And for those of
Yep.
you that joined late, Justin and I had a chance to interview him on our podcast, Multiply Your Success, several weeks back. So that's a great episode for you to learn a little bit more there. But join the email list. I love
Yep.
emails. I'm on probably 100 email lists, but I love going through them. They're always relevant, and I flag your post
Thank
every
you.
week or your email every week. It's just great information, especially if I'm not active on LinkedIn that week. Maybe
Yep.
I'm traveling a lot or had a busy week in meetings, and I just don't have as much time to be present on LinkedIn. Being able to catch your weekly posts have been great. So I just encourage people to take a look at that as well.
I really appreciate that. Yeah, my goal there is to have a 3 minute read that uses some data to give credence to some advice on LinkedIn, and it's been fun. It's funny for me. I post probably 14 times a week on LinkedIn, and I post one newsletter a week. And my goal is really amongst that, if someone in my network sees one or two of my LinkedIn posts a month and maybe reads one of my newsletters a month, that's great. So it is kind of a volume game. Looks like
Yeah.
Angela has a question. Angela, happy to have you come off mute and would love to hear from you.
Yeah.
Or I'm
Hey,
sorry, Angel, not
Angel.
Angela.
Angel, I hit unmute there. Go ahead and let me see if I can yeah, go ahead and hit unmute and then you should be all set. Go ahead.
Hi, good to see you, Tom, and nice to meet you, Justin. One of the things I have a question is I know a lot of CEOs tend to be overexposed or underexposed, and it's kind of a question. In my world, I'm in media, so I don't mind being overexposed, but I do have a couple of organizations that I connect with. When I repost their work, for example, if I want to do, for example, we have a daily post that we do Monday through Friday. If I want to repost it in, say, another organization that connects automatically, how does that algorithm work? Is that something where I should go and take it out and repost in their organization and then it goes up, or does it depend upon how much they're looked at? I mean, I'm just trying to figure because I have two posts of the same thing, and what happens is it seems like sometimes I get people coming from nowhere. I have no idea where they're from, and the other ones are from people that are definitely in my list. What are your
Yep.
thoughts?
And you mean so just to make sure I'm tracking, are you reposting the post from the company, or are you reposting the post from the CEO?
Okay, this is from our company. So we have
Yep.
5 days a week. We have a post from the founder of our company. And it's called Sports Play of the Day. And
Yep.
so occasionally I will go ahead and I'll put in there. And sometimes the algorithms from LinkedIn will say, "Oh, this would be good for Sports Front, or this would be from Sacred Heart, or whatever." Some of these different things that I belong to, and I'll go ahead and post them, and sometimes I'll get some stuff and sometimes I won't. How does that algorithm work? You mentioned something about reposting being
Yep.
weaker, obviously. Uh,
Yep.
I don't mind it. I mean, it doesn't make any difference to me, but how do we make that work?
So a couple of thoughts. First of all, I want to be explicit that nothing that no one really knows how the algorithm works. And so I should have preceded everything I said, which is like we have obviously collected extensive data. We talk with a lot of experts. We do a lot of this. But at the end of the day, there is a lot of, at best, these are our assumptions about how the algorithm works. And even the people who work at LinkedIn don't really have, in my view, most of them don't have direct insight into what works or exactly how the algorithm is structured. But a couple of thoughts for you, and I'm just trying to pull up a couple of leave behinds that you'll have access to for free here. So we do a lot of research. And one of the reports that's on our website, you can view this for free. It's in our resources section at executivepresence.io. The state of LinkedIn gives a lot of data on LinkedIn. And I don't know, I thought it was in here, but actually, apologies. So the first thing I'd say, Angel, is that LinkedIn favors individuals over organizations. And so if you or if a CEO were to post something from your individual account, we find that it'll get roughly 7 to 10 times more views than if the organization posts it. And there's a couple reasons for that. One is you have a network of people who know you, like you, and trust you, and they're going to see your post. And a second thing is that people tend to engage with other people on LinkedIn rather than faceless organizations. So our view is that the company page and the company posts are kind of table stakes, but where most of the growth and visibility will come from is from individual people on LinkedIn. That said, if you go to our website and go to the resources section, our most recent report is actually, we looked at 10,000 posts from company pages and we found some best practices. So if you go there, you'll see different things about how to get more visibility from your company's posts. So something, one thing is multimedia plays a much bigger role on company posts, and video. And so you'll find quite a bit of data there with tactics that we won't have time to go in right now, but that's one thing. A third thing is, yeah, you are right. The reposts we found, so LinkedIn updated their algorithm in June, and we found that reposts are now getting 88% less engagement than they were prior to June. And so I would encourage you with that company post, there is some value in reposting the CEO, but it would be better if you took what they're saying and tagged the CEO and kind of restated as an original post. We just find that reposts are not doing that well. And then lastly, this is just kind of a tiny one. We have a thesis that in a personal post or a company post, if you tag someone, if that person responds and engages with your post, it will get more visibility. But if that person doesn't engage, it gets less visibility. And the theory there is that there were a lot of people who would go on and tag, Elon Musk and tag, Jeff Bezos and all of these people, and they don't know them, they don't engage, and so they suffer from that. But if someone knew me and tagged me and I responded, the algorithm is going to give more visibility because they're like, well, they actually have a relationship. So I threw a couple things at you, but hopefully that helped, Angel.
That's fine. Yeah, thank you very much. Like I said, we're just trying to get the LinkedIn is predominantly what I use, and
Yep.
we'd like to be able to learn more about that. So I'll probably try to connect with you later. Thank you,
That
Tom.
would be
Thank
great.
you, Justin. Appreciate it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
thank you.
Thanks, Angel. Thank you. Anyone else that's still on the line with us here have questions, comments, anything they'd like to add or ask Justin while we have him? All right. Well, Justin, I'm not seeing anything come through, so I just want to thank you again for your time. Really
Thank you
appreciate
all.
it. The presentation was fantastic. And for those of you who tuned in or joined us a little late, just a reminder, we will have the replay live on YouTube over the course of the next few days, as well as available on our podcast, Franchise Your Business. Thank you so much, Justin. Have a great weekend, everyone.